Hi, Alton Gansky here. Thank you for joining me for Typewriter Tuesday. I want to show you a typewriter, but I know what you're going to say. You're going to say, I've already seen this typewriter on this program. Well, actually, you haven't seen this typewriter, but I want to talk to you not only about the typewriter, but the case that it came in, because it's rather unique. So bear with me. And again, welcome to Typewriter Tuesday.
It's Typewriter Tuesday. Let's journey into the past to see what writers of old used to use to ply their trade. What kind of mechanical beauty does Al have for us this week?
Okay, here we are. We're back at my little work area in my office, where I spend a good bit of my life working on books and working on typewriters when I get the chance. This is a 1946 Underwood Universal. And again, if you're saying, oh, I've already seen this, you've done a program on this, well, you'd be right. Because I have another Underwood Universal, same year, 1946. These two were made very close to each other. But this one is a little bit different, but more than that, the case that it came in is different. I'm going to show you what I mean by that. But first, let's get reacquainted with the typewriter itself. As you can see, it's an Underwood. It's a Universal. A little later, they'll issue this same kind of typewriter as a Champion, and it will have a few differences. For example, the Champion has a tab key. This has no tab key, but if we can look way down in here, you can see that there is a slot, empty slot. I can't know if I can get close enough here, but there's an empty slot for another key, and that's where the tab key would go. It would go right up in this area. And so if you see an Underwood Champion, then you'll have a tab key there. My other one is a little different because the keys here are green. The rest of the keys are the same color, but those keys are green, so that's one of the little differences, but it's really not all that different. It's a great typer, and it's a little sad when we look at this, and this is one of the things I wanted to bring up, because we're seeing history pass. This typewriter was done right after the war. Now remember, during World War II, most typewriter companies had to give up making typewriters to support the war, and some of them made, like Remington made weapons. I believe Underwood was making M1 carbines. Others made ammunition, that sort of thing. And it makes sense. They're used to working with metal. Of course, they had to retool stuff, but nonetheless, they had the workforce, and they had a lot of the machinery that could be retooled to do something other than typewriters. Well, after the war ended, everybody went back to making typewriters, and Underwood did, and stayed in the portable game. Now, Underwood is best known for large typewriters, office-style typewriters, sometimes called standard typewriters, the same kind that many of us learned on in school, great big behemoths of metal. In fact, let me just swing around here and show you two of them over there. Those top two typewriters are both Underwoods. One's an Underwood Touchmaster 2, one's an Underwood 5, and I learned on the 5 when I was at school a long time ago. They excelled at that. In fact, they pretty much set the standard for the industry about what typewriters would look like and work like. Of course, this is before the war, and this is in the early years when the perfect design had yet to be found, and so sometimes you had type keys hitting the bottom of the roller, the platen. Sometimes you had them striking from different sides. But Underwood pretty much established the bar for that, and many had trouble keeping up. But where Underwood had a problem was in the portable market. And by this time now, late 1940s, the war is over. They're trying to get back into the portable, and they're fighting people like Remington, like Corona, and they just were not quite able to keep up. They made great typewriters, but they couldn't quite crack that market. And they tried a number of things, which is one of the reasons we're doing this. So let me show you just basically the typewriter in case you missed that other episode. The keys are plastic now. That's one way you know that it's after World War II. They went to plastic instead of the metal rimmed keys with the glass top. It has a tensioner over here that you can move up and down to set the tension of the keys, how hard you have to strike the keys. It sets the tension in the action. And it also has shift keys, of course, which has been around for a very long time. Notice that the plate and the whole carriage rises and falls, as opposed to having the type basket drop which is a little easier on the typist. Nice little chrome work around it. Still a little bit of that Art Deco stuff, even though now we're getting into the 50s and into the jet age and space age kinds of design. And that was one of the problems that Underwood had. They weren't quite able to get that new look that people wanted. And ultimately what would happen is an Italian company, Olivetti, would partner with them, in essence, buy them out, at least on this side of the market. And the U.S. Underwood focused on office machines. And so many of the later models after this, you get towards the end of the 50s, are really Olivetti's that have been rebranded for Underwood. As we work our way around, some interesting things. This little button here, I have seen described as the release for the ribbon cover, this thing, but it's not. And I thought that for a long time too, but I could never figure out why I could lift the ribbon cover without pushing that button. And there's the type basket plastic ribbon holders. It means, of course, that somebody changed it, and you would expect that on a typewriter of this age. What this little item does down here, this little ribbon, it's really not a ribbon cover release. It's the margin release. It's just not identified as such. So if you get to the end of the line and your margin stops stop you, you push this and you can type a couple more letters before hitting the return. Again, it's called a Universal. It would later become the Champion. It has really all the regular things you expect out of the typewriter. Nice paper bail. And this particular machine, the platen, the rubber is in pretty good shape. Anytime you go to buy one of these, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to show this, but if you get close enough, you can see that people have been typing right on the platen itself. And there's something about typewriters that's just irresistible. They have to type. And if you see this at a store or something, an antique store, they have to pound the keys a little, even if there's no paper in there. And it's bad for the machine. It does lock the carriage. Down here, you can do that. One of the interesting things is changing the spacing, the line spacing, and that's done right down here with this little guy. This guy moves up and down. I have it set for 1, then you can move it down to 2, and then you can move it down for 3, and you set your line spacing with that. Then the usual things where you can move the carriage. It has 2 of them. One is in the back on the left-handed side, and then showing preference to right-handers. This is also the carriage release, and I really like it there because you can hold the knob and push the lever at the same time and get the thing to move, so you have much more control. So I think that's absolutely brilliant. The top tips back, and there you can see the margin settings, the left and the right. No tabs on this one. You do have tabs on the Champion version, but the Universal doesn't have a tab key because you can't set the tabs. It just doesn't have it. It looks like it's set up for the old way of doing things where you used to put little pins in there and set your tabs, but of course if you don't have a way of hitting a tab key, there's no sense in having that. So you have to just do the old spacing, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to indent. So there it is in a nutshell. You probably have more information in episode 12 where I talk about the other one that I have. Now, so the question is going to come to mind, and I hear you asking this. You typewriter aficionados, you're all geniuses, so I know that. And I know that because you like typewriters. But why would I get another one of these if I already had one? And I have walked away from others of these, even though I really like them. They're great little typers, and they last forever. And the reason is the case it came in. Now, normally you don't think much about the case. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. We're going to swing around and come over to this little beauty. And this little beauty is the Underwood case that it came in. Now, if you've been around typewriters very long, you may notice that it seems unusually thick. Well, it is, and there's a reason for it. I like how it says Underwood on it. A plastic handle instead of the old leather ones. And this was really pretty clean. So if you take a quick tour around it, you notice that it has a clasp not only on the front over here, but one on the side. What's that all about? Back here we have the feet. You see the regular hinges. You see that there's releases so you can take this top portion off. And just one side thing, if you're buying off eBay or some other place like that, every once in a while you'll get someone who doesn't really know much about typewriters. I don't have a problem with that. They found something to sell, and they help us out quite a bit. But you'll see these turned upside down, and the typewriter put in the top with the feet resting, and they have it upside down. I don't want to do that because inside is where the typewriter attaches. So let's see if we can do this here with one hand. And so when I got this, I was very pleased because it's very clean. And it's some of the exterior is starting to wear off a little bit, but that's to be expected. It's just going to need a touch of glue and some little bit of love. These go into the feet, and then it also locks back in the back, so the typewriter sits securely inside. Okay, all well and good. That looks like just about any other typewriter case that you're going to see of this era. Let's see if I can get this to lock. And it did. All right. Well, now that begs another point. What in the world is this thing for? Why do you need two clasps? Well, some of you know. Let me bring the rest of you into the reasons behind this. It's got a little secret. And what we're seeing here is a series of legs. This case is designed to be a stand. And one of the markets that Underwood and others tried to get to is the traveling salesman or the traveling businessman. They began to make portable typewriters that would fit under the seat in a train or under the seat in an airplane. And so one of the things they did, and this is the only one I've ever seen in the wild, I've seen other people that have had it, is this series of legs used to make the stand. And when you open this, you lock things in place, and like this, and you have another set that comes up back here. And then you can set up a little stand. Now, it's going to be impossible for me to do with just one hand since I'm using my iPhone to shoot this. So let me set it up, and then I'll show you what happens next. So hang in there with me. And we're back, and there it is. The Underwood Universal sitting in that bottom portion of the case that I showed you. And the top comes out to the side so that we have a place to set down paper or anything that we're copying. So if we're a traveling salesperson, we might put our orders there and put in the forms into the typewriter and start typing. The legs make it very possible to raise this to a decent height. They're a little awkward to use now because they're quite old, and so, yeah, I even broke a nail. I know, I can hear the sounds of pity right now, but we got them kind of loosened up. You have the option of removing the very top portion of the case, and I wouldn't put much in it because then it would make the thing tip over. But it is pretty clever, and I can sit right at this typewriter. It's at a decent height. And the way the legs are constructed is if you wanted to set this on a table, you could. It would probably scar the table, but these bottom portions down here, these bottom portions fold into this, and you can shorten it if you had something you wanted to set it on. So it's pretty clever. I've only seen one of these in the wild, and that's why I went ahead and bought a second typewriter. It came with the case, and it was really the case that I was after because it represents so much. Well, there it is, the Underwood Universal 1946. Just as Underwood is getting into that period of time when they're having to try to redesign and they need help to get the portables to work, and then Olivetti will come in and do a bunch of typewriters under the Underwood name. Sometimes you'll see them listed as Underwood Olivetti. It's just the way the business works. But anyway, I thought you would appreciate seeing such a unique case, as well as a very good and unique typewriter, which remains one of my favorite typewriters. Very easy to type on, very comfortable spacing of the keys. The last thing I'll say about the typewriter itself, if I can zoom in enough here, you'll notice some of the keys are slightly damaged. They are scarred. And the reason is, I believe, and don't start throwing stuff yet, let me explain. It was probably owned by a woman. And what I mean by that is women would have longer fingernails. And so it's not unusual in typewriters to find some of the letters scarred, a little bit chipping, because over time of constantly hitting them with the fingernails, it can do some damage. So is that the actual case? I don't know. They could have loaned it to a Bengal tiger to type a resume. I don't know. But I do know that you occasionally find typewriters that have that problem. Well, once again, this is Alton Gansky. Thank you for joining me in my office, where I keep my typewriters and where I do my writing. AltonGansky.com. If you like this, go ahead and hit the thumbs up and be sure and subscribe. Again, AltonGansky.com, Typewriter Tuesday. Thanks so much for being here.